Hi. You could all tell you were really good students because you are all the ones that got real quiet at some point. So thank you again. No, guys, don't go anywhere yet. No, I'm serious, don't go anywhere yet. Because not only do I want to welcome people who are watching here and online, but I actually just want to say thank you to Evan Short on bassoon and Anthony Candelara on flute from the School of Music. So. Okay, now you're allowed to leave and go check your phone or whatever you need to do. I also want to thank our student ambassadors for helping us out today, and the team from Academic Outreach and Innovation for helping us with the live stream feed so that colleagues across the system or across the campus or wherever they might be are able to participate with us. But I really also want to thank you all for coming here in person. We'd spent a lot of time in the college, even since January, thinking about how do we rebuild human community, and this is one way that we do it. So I hope you'll also stick around for the reception afterwards, because there are a lot of cool people you get to meet. One who doesn't necessarily fit that's me, Todd Butler, Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences. And I want to begin with, by pushing this button. So it goes forward. I don't think it is. So. Nope. Oh. How about it is? I'll just turn it off and on again, which is the limit of my technology. Go ahead. So I won't read the full nature of this land acknowledgement, but I do want to acknowledge that WSU across its system sits on the lands of 42 tribes, 35 of which are federally recognized in the homelands and waterways of Washington State. And as an academic community, we have a responsibility to establish and maintain relationships with these tribes and Native peoples in support of tribal sovereignty and the inclusion of their voices in teaching, research, and programming. We also pledge that these relationships will consist of mutual trust, respect, and reciprocity. I've made it a practice of mine, not just to read this, but to say something about why I think it matters at any given point. And so in this, I want to mention two things that are happening in the college right now. One, I expect that in the next couple of weeks, following a final round of consultation with two tribes, that we will submit to the National Park Service, which coordinates remains and held in academic and private museums. The last notice that we have for fragmentary remains of 3 sets within our anthropology museum so that they are available for repatriation. I appreciate the applause. It really should go to the people who for over 10 years have worked to divest our museum of a lot of this material. Especially including Zoe High Eagle Strong, our Native tribal partners. I put it here, and I want to mention this now because we're going to talk about a lot of things that are celebratory, and I have an ambivalence about calling this a celebratory thing. It was an obligation, and is an obligation for us. At the same time, one of the things that we'll be doing this year is beginning to think more deliberately with the tribal relations and our partners about how we submit and support and reimagine both the American Indian Studies Certificate and also the Tribal Nation Building Program that's here at WSU. So that's what we do today. There'll still be other things tomorrow, still be obligations that we'll maintain, but that's my land acknowledgement too, as part of that. So, give this one more try. I'm just gonna do the little flip wave. So, hi, these are just a small segment of the new colleagues that we have here joining us today. Their photos are taken from a much larger photo array that you'll see outside during the reception. It's actually really an exciting point to be part of someone starting or continuing on their career. Let me give you a little sense of by the numbers as to who's joining us this year. In the last academic year, we searched for and successfully hired 35 faculty system-wide, 20 tenure track faculty, 15 career track faculty, and 21 staff members in Pullman. The reason why I highlight only Pullman and staff is just simply because a lot of the campuses, given their size, hire staff that support our work, but aren't solely fixed within the College of Arts and Sciences. We are continuing, even within a state of kind of budget uncertainty at times, to hire and replace faculty. There's a lot more to do, but right now we have approved searches for at least 18 tenure track and career track faculty going forward. Go ahead. We have 2 new people joining us in the Office of the Dean. One I've already introduced to you in a letter. That's Henry Evans. He is a faculty member in politics, philosophy, and public affairs. He's also our nationally searched for Associate Dean for Equity and Outreach. I mention these folks here because I think you ought to know who your leadership is, but particularly in this case, I made a commitment to fill this role and create this role only when we were also hiring faculty and staff. And Henry's role is actually a replacement of a role that Ana Maria Rodriguez-Vivaldi, some of you may know, occupied for a long time. We left it vacant for 3 years, but we also reimagined it, and I'm really excited that you're here. Similarly, this is news of this week. We have a new Senior Director of Development, Claire Forster, who comes to us in the midst of what has been a really exceptional year by our development team, and a lot more to come. So let me tell you about that in a second. So there we go. And now see, all right, so little update on fundraising. Last year, we gave over $2 million in scholarships to 540 students, graduate and undergraduate, system-wide. Total gifts to the college, estate gifts, cash gifts, were over $9 million. Our goal was 8. So we blew by that goal. It is the 4th year in a row that we've done that. They're headlined by a variety of gifts, including a $1.5 million naming gift for the Pollard Center for Arts and Humanities, and a $1.4 million combined estate gift that created a new distinguished professorship and enhanced graduate fellowship support. This is in the sciences. The most important thing and the interesting thing about this new distinguished professorship that we'll be working on setting up is it is the first distinguished professorship in the college devoted to the teaching of science and mathematics. It is open to all faculty, regardless of rank and track, because you all teach and you all are good at your job. So, what are we going to do next in terms of fundraising? We have 3 pillars for what we're looking for, along with all the other scholarship support and everything else like this. As WSU begins to prepare for its next capital campaign, we will be highlighting the need for early and mid-career distinguished professorships. We have a lot of distinguished professorships, and I'd love to have more, but we have comparatively few in these ranks to recognize people who have achieved tenure, who are doing exceptional things, and that we want to keep here. Similarly, high-impact student experiences, you'll hear about several of these now. The ability for us to not only do what we do in the classroom, but support the kind of learning that our students want to pursue, graduate and undergraduate, outside the classroom, is something we want to do more of. And then we also want to revitalize core infrastructure in the college. The college has more than $144 million in deferred maintenance attached to its facilities, including this one, and others that are here. So, I think that's a little fast. There should be a slide before that. No, okay. Oh, now I know what I wanted to say about this. So those campaign things, this made a lot of sense to me at midnight last night. My fundamental goal, especially for this year and every year, is to reassert the College of Arts and Sciences as the core and heart of Washington State University across research, teaching, and service. And at the same time this year, to reassert our core mission within the College of Arts and Sciences. So now the slide I'm looking for. So let's start with research. How do we support research in terms of people? Associated with all those hires that I told you that we're bringing in, the college has committed for the next 3 years over $2 million in startup support for these faculty members to launch their careers. That is not solely concentrated in the sciences. For the first time, I believe, since I've been here in 20 years, the College of Arts and Sciences centrally has supported hires through startup across the sciences, social sciences, arts, and humanities, to varying levels according to need of a discipline, but we're investing in all of our faculty. We also, every year, invest over $650,000 in research funding, and that does not include ICR. For those of you who don't know, is indirect costs. It's F&A. We make a total of about $1.2 million in the college in F&A. We immediately return over $760,000 to departments and faculty. We never even see it. So what's left for us is about a third of that, and nearly all of it every year is spent on direct faculty support. New programs, if you see some of the chairs in my office, they're not anything better than anybody else's or anything like that. Instead, most of that support goes to sciences, arts and humanities, other centers and institutes. About 40% of our own ICR money goes there. About 25% of it goes to direct faculty support, new programs, grant supports, all those other things like that. And so that's what I want to talk about briefly. So we've expanded staffing to work on pre- and post-award within grants. It's still a bottleneck. It's a bottleneck within the university. But that also comes with new support programs. Becky James is running a proposal design workshop across the entire academic year to support large-scale grants and prestigious fellowship pursuit. There's similarly pathways to commercialization that will be starting in January. And then also in January will be the return of the Myers Point environmental fieldwork grants. That's in part made possible by the fact that we've placed a conservation easement on this beautiful Myers Point property, which is on Puget Sound, that in perpetuity it would be held in its natural state for research, teaching in the sciences, in the arts, in creativity, and that's under Steve Boland's out of Vancouver. And that process and those grants will start up next year. So the question is next, though, where are we going to put these people and what are they going to do here? So for a long time, I think you're familiar with our central project is an integrated sciences building. It will replace Heald Hall. It is now in design phase. It has moved from pre-design to design. It envisions a potential, at least now, combination of faculty, new faculty in space from biology, chemistry, and potentially even in the social sciences, because what we're interested now is adding to that what's called a federally restricted data center. A little brief part on that, it is basically a secure facility that allows researchers to access granular data from census records, INH, et cetera, that allows for very targeted understanding of environments, human and otherwise. That is the kind of information that otherwise would be personally identifiable. That is all the African Americans in Whitman County over the age of 50 who are making X amount more than that. Well, you can narrow that down pretty quickly, and so it has to be restricted. But the idea is to bring together scientists and social scientists from not just at WSU, but in the Inland Northwest, to think about how we address a problem, say like environmental change or climate change, that has both scientific, systems level, and social human components. And you put those people in the same space, and then you see what happens. To do that, though, we have to empty Heald Hall, or in the language of our consultants, we have to decant it, like a fine wine. So we've been doing that, and the college has secured over $2 million the past couple of years in upgrading and advancing core elements of the Oni Herbarium, which is being moved to the Owen Science Library. Eric Rolson is here, and on behalf of him, on Tuesday, October 3rd from 4 to 6, you can come see the new digs there. We're also doing a significant amount of reglazing and other upgrades to the greenhouses. And at the same point, we are, with the help of Squeak Muzzle, who's the chair of the Department of Art, engaging in significant renovations of gallery spaces as well. Again, across the whole gamut from fine arts to physics, that's what we're investing in, not just people, but places and spaces for them to work. So we're also looking for external funding. Please don't let the government shut down, because we have things that are coming to us, including potentially a new transmission electron microscope for our Franceschi Microscopy Center, as well as the start of what we hope to be a massive set of upgrades to WSU's nuclear reactor. This was a surprise to me, that we have a nuclear reactor on campus. It's out by the golf course, thankfully. Students work on it, undergraduate students. They are trained to become nuclear reactor technicians, and a lot of what actually happens here is isotope production that can be used for radiochemistry, medicinal chemistry. We're hoping to, right now, add a hot cell to that to produce additional work, but then also potentially expand the megawatt capacity of that reactor and catalyze all kinds of new research, teaching in nuclear chemistry, in radiochemistry. That's the sort of thing we're pursuing at the federal level through the kind of directed federal funding projects. And at the same time, we have a goal of $30 million in private philanthropy to supplement the $50 million that we hope to get from the state for the Integrated Sciences Building. That is part of a 10-year renovation process of the entire science corridor, which will run from Heald up through the multiple buildings in Fulmer, et cetera. So this is a long-term investment for us. And I also have dreams of a culture corridor that extends from the Art Museum all the way down to here in Kimbrough, because we are at the center of the university. That's for next year, I guess. But I wanted to show you this, because this is actually one of the enabling projects that we've already done to get empty Heald Hall. If you were like me, that's what your science laboratories looked like in high school. That's what our undergraduates have been working with. That's what they work with now. It's so exciting. To renovate facilities means that you show someone that the work they're doing within them, whether they're faculty, staff, or students, that what they do matters and the possibilities that they can have matter. That's why we spend the time doing that research. So the next component, what are we doing to reimagine the student experience? Well, here's the thing that you're always going to want to know, and so I'll give you the updates. We just changed this slide like half an hour ago. Across the system, total enrollment at WSU, all the campuses, all the colleges, is down about 3.8% this year. That is countered, however, by a 6.5% increase in new first-time freshman applications and enrollments. Really, what a lot of that decrease is we had some very large entering classes across the system before COVID, and a significant drop. Those people are now juniors and seniors, and the large classes that were here before COVID have graduated. So there's an inevitable dip. We'll call it long COVID in terms of enrollment. So a little bit more specific on CAS. Both Pullman and Vancouver have seen overall enrollment declines in the number of students who are indicated and enrolled specifically as majors in CAS. However, Tri-Cities and Global have increased. By the same token, in CAS, students have had a first-year decline in Tri-Cities and Vancouver, but increases in Pullman and Global. So at times, there's not a ton we can do about that except just be exceptional about the level of recruiting and admissions, although we are now planning out what we think enrollments will be in 2032. We're doing a lot of data work on that. But this is the thing that is more important for us, because I think it's a value-driven proposition, both in terms of finances, but also equity, and I might even say morality, which is retention. If you bring a student here and they churn back out, not only are they not here as a, and I hate saying it this way, a revenue stream for 3 years, but they may very well have exited with student loan debt that they can't pay off because you can't clear it in bankruptcy. And they leave with an experience that they weren't good at college. Whether that's true or not, that's a fundamental barrier to someone re-entering. So this is our job as academics, is once they're here to keep them here. And so I want to highlight one thing that we did in leadership and in conjunction with your departments this year, which is we began to look at opportunity gaps. And that was the distinction in C minus, D, F, or W, which means withdrawal rates, between what we might call traditional students, and I use that in quotation marks because they're juxtaposed here against students who self-identify as first gen, Pell Grant eligible, which usually means lower socioeconomic status of their family entering, and self-identified students of color. And what we did is a deep data dive, and across a lot of our units, focusing on our core and U-core classes, the kind of classes that if you don't pass, no matter what your major is, you don't get a degree. In fact, you're probably blocked out. History, mathematics, physics, chemistry, those kind of core U-core classes. We delved into what's the gap between the performance of these students in these categories and then more perhaps typical students. And then we worked collaboratively with faculty and leadership in your units to challenge them to think about how can you change your course design, your pedagogy, and your student support to close these opportunity gaps. Now, I should say that they're not all fundamentally those gaps the responsibility of in-classroom work. A student who is stressed financially may not do as well, but we may not have as much of an ability to affect that within our classrooms. At the same time, we ask them, you know your disciplines best. What interventions do you need to make and change, and how can we fund and support those? And those were different across the way. Physics used learning communities. Mathematics, and I found this really fascinating, their fundamental challenge, and it makes sense intuitively when I heard it, is a mindset challenge, which is students enter thinking they're not good at math. It makes sense intuitively, but that's a challenge that I didn't face when I was an English professor in quite the same way. So we worked through a lot of that work, and actually the people in those units did a lot of that work, and here's what we found. There was at least, in 1 year, a decrease in 20 to 40% in those opportunity gaps. I mean, students are performing better, we're meeting our mission better, and we're doing something that's right for our students and for our purpose as the heart of WSU. It's going to get harder and harder to close those because they're not all within our control. We also began thinking about, as many of you may know, the university's first academic mental health strategy for students. Right now, mental health reasons are one of the top 3 reasons why students step out of school. And if you have seen CDC data on the prevalence of mental health challenges and concerns among high school students who are entering class, you know that this is not going away. In fact, here on campus and in other campuses, even as the student population has decreased, the number of students seeking support from counseling and psychological services has increased. So the proportion is growing higher. So addressing that, though, and figuring out what we do as academics rather than as counselors was the challenge we took up. We are running now, with the help of Christine Horn in sociology, a graduate course on mental well-being for graduate students who occupy a really challenging space because they're students, but they're also teachers. They see this from both angles. We also began to fund and will continue to fund mental health first aid training. And what that means is for those of you, faculty, staff, on any campus who wish to pursue mental health first aid training, it costs about $50 a person. The college will cost share 50% with your departments on you choosing to do that. You just need to let your department chair know. They can talk to us about how we reimburse for that. At the same token, I took the class, and I paid for it and a cohort to do this in June, and it was really, really good. It is not an information push out, click things online, watch a video. It was about 8 hours of collaborative work between faculty, staff, about thinking about how do we engage and practice out our first responder sort of responses. That's in conjunction with a mental health working group that brings together people from faculty and staff, academic advisors, frontline staff, and from student affairs to think about how do we understand the mental health environment, what capacities do we have as a college, and how do we apply them. And again, this is about how we can be as academics, not as counselors. It's not our role to do the latter. I will say, though, that they overlap, and here's just one example. Studies show that a student who has a positive experience in office hours with a faculty member is more likely to seek out and secure mental health support when they later need it. And I think it's for a fundamental reason, that they had a positive experience of going to seek someone and saying, I'm concerned about performance, I'm concerned about something, can you help me? You don't have to do anything other than what your job is to make a difference. So thanks for when you do it and how much you do it. Because that's the other thing, we haven't even sketched about the next step in this, which is thinking about how do we support and address mental health concerns within our faculty and staff. So right now I'm just acknowledging that. The other part of the student experience is an increasingly world-engaged outside of classroom experience. So I want to highlight two things. One, our first pilot experience, this is the Seattle experience. We took a series of about 12 undergraduates from across the college for a week in Seattle to meet with professionals from major corporations, from city government, from nonprofits. And many of you might be familiar with something like this as a Career Connect network sort of thing. But under the guidance of Jeff Sanders in history and Leanne Ralston, who's our, part of our advising staff, we decided to make it authentic to what it means to be a College of Arts and Sciences. And so there was it wasn't just a junior account executive from Amazon showing the slide deck of like, why it's great to work at Amazon. It is, I think, I don't know, I haven't worked there, but it was structured around a question. Belonging. What does it mean to belong to a city, to a community, and to a profession? And that thread, that intellectual thread, is what we are about as liberal arts students, is what framed what these students did for a week. And they were joined by our alumni and our alumni board. I should say every single one of these students had that experience paid for. And we concentrated on people who might not be able to do it. We had students who were from the center of Washington and had never been to Seattle before, had never even thought that that might be a possibility for them. And it's about opening that possibility. We're going to run this again this year. I suspect, actually, that although we haven't firmed it up, this year's theme will be sustainability. It parallels with what there's a major initiative that's being done on sustainability within the university, but we mean sustainability more holistically. How do you sustain a community? What does it take to sustain individuals? Who's in a community, who's not? And how do you envision yourself as playing a part in that? So that's the kind of world-engaged education that we want to bring out. Next one. Now I want to highlight a program here, data analytics. And under the direction of Jandis Gupta, created a set of data play shops with the support of private and state funding that connected with K-8 students and their families across the state, often in underserved communities, to demystify the nature of data and suggest that there's a pipeline and for a different type of student, a different type of family to engage in questions of data analytics. Similarly, data analytics is now the first ever Career Connect program at the 4-year level across the state of Washington. That means that it's been designed to create pathways for internships and support, and a major state grant is enabling us to hire the staff that's necessary to do that. There are a lot of these sort of programs or a lot of these initiatives that many of you take individually, and this is the kind of work that we want to do with our students and in conjunction with the communities they come from and they will return back to. So, now I'm getting to the question part. I asked your chairs and directors this question. How many of your graduating seniors, this is back in May, are going on to graduate school in your discipline? You know, what's the percentage, roughly? And what I mean by in the discipline is that there are any number of, say, biology students who might go to med school. That's different. That's a different sort of thing. How many are going to go study biology or English? And generally, the amount was 5% or maybe up to 20% of our majors will go do that this coming year. So here's my question to you. What would our curricula look like if we designed for the 80 to 90% of students who will never do that, or who might not do that. Doesn't mean that they're not going to need to know the depths of English or history or sociology or physics. But what would it look like if we took these students and their goals as an objective, and how can we prepare them actually to go out into the world and engage and make a difference? I'd love for you all to think about that this year. And so here's the stuff I think about. I always sort of end this talk with not answers, but things that keep me up at night. Lots of stuff keeps me up at night, our dogs, et cetera. But in this thing, I still worry all the time about enrollment and retention. And we have to, because we are a research university. There's no distinction between enrollments and engagement in the work that we do on the research end. Similarly, you will have seen that the university has paused the redesign of a budget model. That's challenging for our college, because our college has been significantly and historically disadvantaged by a budget model that I would say the entirety of the university does recognize needs to be revised. So that's one of the things that we're actively working in partnership to rethink, because that means funding for the things that we need to do. By the same token, external support for everything you do, that $30 million price tag, that's a little scary when I think it's kind of my job and y'all's job and development down there to find that. But it's worthwhile doing, and the things that you want to do. And here are the other two things that I think about too. Sustaining the arts and sciences more broadly. I know and have watched with dismay what's happened at West Virginia University and other places. We're committed to advancing and sustaining the work that we do so that that doesn't happen here. Similarly, sustaining the people that we have here in the work that they do. This year in the fall, our Faculty Advisory Council, half of whom are made up of folks that you elect, will be looking at the employee engagement surveys and the coach surveys and trying to drill down into how we can make a difference in some of the concerns that folks have had about workload, about burnout, about really truly investing in DEI. Part of that, I think, honestly, is because so many of you are working at the highest possible capacity because of reductions in staff or the amount of workload. And then it also becomes challenging when you need to get something done and you're relying on someone else who already has their plate full somewhere else in the ether, whether it's the Workday ether, the HRS ether, to process that through. So we need to think about a lot of that stuff, and I think about how do we sustain the work that y'all are doing when the pace of operations is so high. So, and there's one other thing. I've made a personal promise to communicate to y'all more. That means more regular emails from me just about what we're doing, because we owe you that much. I will also be visiting each of your department faculty meetings, at least once this year, most in the fall, for as long as you want me there. And we'll talk about that. And there's something that the Faculty Advisory Committee developed last year, which is, it sets on a notion of micro appreciations, and which is the idea that it's worthwhile sometimes just to hear that you're doing a good job, and it makes you feel good when you say that someone is doing a good job. So this site is now live. And what it does is it's an opportunity for you to go to the site, drop an email, a little kind of thank you to someone for the work that they've been doing, whether it's in your department or outside of it. That person will just get pinged with an email, so will their supervisor saying, did you know that they did a good job? And if you feel comfortable about this, so will your supervisor saying, hey, did you know that this person took the time to appreciate somebody else? I'm going to ask all chairs and directors to recognize that kind of work, that kind of time out as something really valuable. There are already some of those up right now, and I put one up for all the people who helped me with this. Okay, so the other thing, I also, it takes a village to make me do things. And so I was reminded that that was really important for me to do. So I really thank the folks who, I'm gonna add another thank you quietly to the people who remind me all the time to do the things that I need to do out of that. You can do this as well. Here's this online thing. It will also be in the Monday Catalyst email. It takes really like 3 minutes. But you know your inbox. When was the last time you got an email that just said, hey, by the way, you know, you did a good job? Never. But I know you are. So that's it for my talk for right now. I have Q&A, and you have questions you might want to ask me, but I have some others too that people have submitted, so thanks. I will answer a couple of questions that were submitted online in case you, but feel free to be able to come up and be on the mic. The first question maybe that I'll address is I combine a couple of questions, which is basically, how is the college supporting research? And to what extent is the funding available to support research when the library is cutting journals, for example, or service centers like the herbarium, like the greenhouses are facing the requirement to source more of their funding outside of it. I won't rehash those numbers, only to say that the biggest challenge for us in the college is twofold. One, securing enough resources to do that, and then prioritizing among the multiple places. If we were, for example, to send money to the libraries on an ongoing basis to support journals, I would have to cut other support programs within the college. As I said, we do not retain very much, if any, of our funding. It goes straight back out to you all. That then is a question of priorities, and what we prioritize are grants to centers and institutes that are better focused on understanding in a particular discipline or area, how we can support folks that work there, faculty support for the kind of large-scale things that can return funds to both that faculty member in the college or return prestige, startup that gets new colleagues here that grows the pie for a lot of us. The thing I will be honest that we don't support very much on a kind of daily basis is individual faculty travel. Part of that simply is a choice that desire is endless. And I understand why, but it's very difficult to figure out how we meet need without diffusing amount of money across the way so there's an extra $300 for folks to go. That's one of our challenges, and if we can grow that pie. The other big challenge, to be frank, is startup. The $2 million that we invested, we can't do that again immediately the next year. I mean, that gets paid out over 3 years. And so that's something that I and other deans have been bringing to the attention of the university about how do we build for replacing and enhancing our faculty, not just this year and not just next year, but for the multiple years to come. That part of that's private philanthropy. Part of that is redesigning central funds. So that's the best I can tell you, honestly, right now about that. But we'll continue to go after it. The other couple things that I was asked for, one is what's the planning in the university for any kind of significant COVID outbreak? A couple questions. One was, are students able to get free N95 masks if they want to? I'm not certain yet. We're trying to track that down. There were questions that I can't answer in regards to air handling within our buildings, classroom buildings and otherwise. Nearly all CAS buildings have HEPA filters for those that recirculate air within a building. The ones that don't are usually science buildings that do not recirculate air, that bring that air in, condition, and then expel it out. In both cases, that limits the buildup of virus particles that might be there. By the same token, we did studies last year and the year before during COVID to identify any places within the college and general university classrooms that did not circulate air adequately. There were a couple places that were identified, and I think those were firewalled off for use. I can't guarantee you that there aren't any viruses in the world or in your building, but those protections exist. The other thing I just tell you is, please go get vaccinated. When the new vaccine comes out, it should be out slowly right now. I'm not sure if it's immediately available, but please go do it, even if it's not a formal mandate from the state. to keep yourselves and other people taken care of. Are there any questions from you all? Okay, I have another one that came in, which was about what is the status of negotiations with the WSU Graduate Student Union, and how much can we know about that or find out about this? So I'll give you what I was actually updated with today. Part of the challenge is that the granular details of this I don't even know, because they're appropriately handled by a labor relations staff. Like, that's the way it ought to be done. However, I can tell you a little bit about what's been going on. Since ASE, which is the Academic Student Union, and WSU began negotiations in February, last February, they have met 23 times, teams from both the graduate students and WSU, and passed over 40 articles. And what they mean by that are segments of what could end up being a contract on particular topics, back and forth. There are tentative agreements on about 13 of those articles, ranging from how do we handle personnel files, to health and safety, to training, to retirement savings and other things like that. 4 more articles, I believe, were accepted this week. I don't know what exactly they are, and they're pending formal agreement. WSU doesn't post those articles yet. For those of you who are interested in the exchanges, you can possibly see versions of these articles at the Coalition for Academic Student Employees, WSU CAS, which is the graduate student website. The only thing I'll just caveat there, because it's certainly not in my control, I have no idea when those are updated, if they're the documents that are put there. They're put there by the Graduate Student Union, are the most immediate, up-to-date, et cetera, on that. So, but that's where you can go if you really want a kind of granular sense on that. In terms of the remaining articles, I think they're close on some and far apart on others. And I don't know what those are yet. And I can't tell you how long those negotiations will last. Sometimes they're fast, often they're not. And that's the best I can tell you on that. Like how the college handled the rollout, for those of you who know what I'm talking about, the minimum salary, the overtime threshold, when we know details, which is at the end of what would be a contract ratification and everything else like that, we will push that out as fast as we can. But until we do that, I can't give you details just because I simply don't know them. So, anything else? Let me see if there was. Nope. Okay. Well, there is one last thing I'd ask y'all to do, which is at the end of this, there's a new colleagues reception outside. It's a super nice day out, as you know, because you've probably been waiting to get out. We're not doing name tags or anything like that today, but if you are a new faculty staff member, and you can decide if you're new or not. You know, some of you are here as a graduate student, then you got appointed as a lecturer or anything. I don't really care. You're one of us. And what that means is you get a sticker. Or you could ask for, it's a fancy little silver Cougar sticker, and that lets you know that you're new. And for those of you who have been here for a long time, I've been here 20 years, please go up and say hi. Like, genuinely, they're some of the coolest people that you will meet. Like, seriously, we did a good job. And we're really excited to get a chance to be your colleagues. Not just this year, but for a lot of years to come. So thanks a lot. Oh, okay, so this is typical too. I just remembered something that I should have said 6 slides ago. Not only do we have a new set of colleagues, we actually have a totally new department in our college, which is the Department of Digital Technology and Culture. Its program has been around for a while, but it is a fully fledged department within our college. Across the campus, there's folks in Tri-Cities and Vancouver and otherwise. And one of the cool things is that they have been, like data analytics, a program that is committed to the engagement of their students in the outside world. Nearly every single one of their students does an externship or an internship or a community engaged work, whether it's with companies or with community service organizations, about getting their message out into the world and navigating that. It's great, and they've intentionally also built in commitments to equity into their hiring and development. So we don't just create a new department, we build new ways of doing knowledge and teaching. So we have a new department too. So that's it. Thanks, y'all.